Hey guys, welcome to the first RBXDev how-to video series video. Today, I would like to show you how to make a chat GUI, and this won't really require a whole ton of knowledge in Lua. It will require you to know how to script in it, like the syntax itself, but it doesn't require any advanced knowledge. So, I suppose let's just get started. For this video, I have already made a GUI because we want to focus on the coding today. Basically, the GUI has 6 slots for the different areas of chat that we will have. So we want the chat to go from T1, as in the bottom slot, to T2, or T2 to T3, and so on and so forth. And this is real simple. Like I said, there's nothing fancy or advanced that we're going to be making today. I'm just going to be showing you a fundamental part of a game that spans from any game genre in general. I mean, it really does make your game look better, sleeker, and quite frankly, it makes you look like a better game developer in general. Not sure it matters that much, but you know, I guess it helps. So just so you guys get a visualization, there are the boxes. I will have this GUI in a free model for you guys after I'm done making it. So you can look back at it and you can look at what I did to the properties of the buttons and why I did that. I won't go a lot into that today because, like I said, we just want to focus on the coding aspect of this tutorial. So let's get to that. Let's get to the coding. So to make this as efficient as possible, we don't want to have a script inside each of these buttons checking if someone talked in game. And another thing is, when we die, we want to make sure that the chat stays there instead of all of these GUIs being blank when you respawn again. So how we would fix this is we would have one spot where we keep all the messages in order. Basically have non-slots keep the messages. So what I'll do is I'll make a script inside of Workspace and call it chat. So let's do that. Let's name this chat. Okay, so this is going to be a really basic script, and it's going to introduce some events. Events are basically listeners that when something happens in the game, which you would call an event, the computer would know it would happen, and your program could pick up on that. So let's make sure we know the computer thinks there's a player in the server. So let's do game.players.player added, which is the event, connect function. For this event, we're going to do a anonymous function, which means it's going to run right on the spot instead of us showing what the function is earlier in the program, like in line 1 down. We're just going to do it just in the connector because we want it to be as short as possible, and we want it to look nice. This is always a good way to show your functions when you're working on group projects because it's easy to read, and quite honestly, it's really it's just less confusing. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect the function with player. No, I'm sorry, not function. We're going to connect player. No, yeah, function player. And basically what this is going to do is it's going to, every time a player is added to the server, hence player added, it's going to say the player variable is the person coming into the game. So we could say something like player.chatted, because that's an event of users when they come in, of the player object. Chatted is basically when the user uses the classic Roblox chat GUI to type in something and press enter, then it fires chatted. So we're going to connect that now. And it's going to connect with a string. And the string would be the actual message. The actual message after going through the Roblox filter. So you don't have to worry about things like swearing or other backwash that you just don't want in your game. So we're going to connect this with message. Make sure that end is good. And now what we can do is we can change some values to make sure that the message gets put into the first slot of the GUI every time, instead of being scattered or whatever, or not being there at all. So what we're going to do, just to make it easier on ourselves, is we're going to make it so in the GUI can instead of not being able to know what values are inside the script, we're going to bring the values outside the script and bring a string value under the script. So we're going to go to the basic objects. We're going to find string value, insert it into the chat script, and then we're going to insert 5 more because we have 6 slots. Let's name these in order. Let's say 1 for the first slot, 2 for the second, 3 for the third, and so on. And 6. So in the chat GUI, not chat GUI, I'm sorry, in the chat script, now what we could do is we could change the values of these objects so that when our chat GUI wants to know what those values are, it could easily just look at them. So since message is a string and we're using string values, the value that goes into these objects is able to be message. And that's really what we want. And since we want the message to show up in slot 1, we're going to make sure that, let's say, script.1.value equals message. And that's basically the simplicity of it. You could just say message, because that's already a string, and the value needs a string. But for the sake of making sure that our GUI doesn't have message for every other slot, and we want the chat to move up the GUI, as in go from slot 1 to slot 2 to slot 3, we would need to say something like I don't know why I'm confusing myself. Script.6.value equals script.5.value. And the reason is we want the upper parts of the GUI to know what the lower parts of the GUI are. As in, we would want slot 6 to change to the text of slot 5 before slot 5 were to change to the text of slot 4. Because if you were to change slot 5's text to slot 4's and then change slot 6 to slot 5, you're making slot 4's text jump 2 up, and you don't want that. So you need to name everything backwards. We're going to go backwards from the slots so that we don't get those mixed up. So we're going to say script.5.value equals script.4.value. Script.4.value equals script.3.value. I don't know why my computer is being weird today. I couldn't press enter. Script.3.value equals script.2.value. The reason why we say script.3.value is when we say the word script, it knows we're talking about the chat script. It just knows. So script in the script would be an object value, which would be the actual thing you're coding in, which is chat. So script.3.value equals script.2.value. And to finish it off, we could say script.2.value equals script.1.value. So that way, instead of, if we were to say script.1.value equals message, and then script.2.value equals script.1.value, then the problem with that is, like I explained before, is if you were to make script.1.value equal message and then make 2 equal to value of 1, then it's going to make the value of 2 equal message, which is the problem. We don't want that. So I'm going to delete that right there. And that's all there is for this script. There's really nothing special there. Like I said, this is very minimal tutorial, but it has a big effect on your game. So now we're going to start going into the GUI so that we can show the different messages. So first, let's go into slot 1 and insert a local script. The reason why we want a local script is because local scripts are most native to the client, and Star GUI works in the client. So that's what we're going to do. And by the way, the client would be your personal computer. Keep that in mind. We're going to talk about that later in the tutorial when we answer some questions at the end. So what we want to do in this script is we would want to know what chat.1.value is, because that would be the player message. So first, let's declare some variables, like, just to make our script shorter, let's say bin equals script.parent, which is the GUI button. And then let's say that chat equals workspace.chat.1, because 1 is the slot that we want. So yeah. Now we can get on to the idea that we want to make sure that this auto updates and doesn't just say the message once. We want to make sure it continuously moves from one message to the next when a player talks. So for this, we would need a loop. So let's do while true do. And instead of doing true, let's replace the true part with wait, so that instead of saying while true do wait at the bottom, we can make it shorter and just putting wait up here, because it's the same thing as saying true. So we could just put wait here, and then we could say bin.text. Remember, bin is the parent of the script, which is slot 1, equals chat.value. And that's all there is to it. You can copy and paste this into every slot, and it will work every time. So first, let's do that, and then I'll talk to you guys about why we need to edit the rest. Okay, so let's start editing the other ones so that they work with our slots instead of just one. The reason why we need to edit them is because in slot 2, we don't want workspace.chat.1, because that will just give you the wrong message. So we're going to say 2 for this, and then for slot 3, we're going to say 3. Slot 4, we will put 4, and so on. 5, and then last but not least, 6. And now to top it all off, we're going to test it. So let me make sure this uploads to a place. Like I said, I will be making sure that there is a free model in my models for you guys when this video is up, so you can look back at it and know how I coded it. Even though you can look at the videos, it's a lot better to look at it yourself. So yeah, let's call this GUI testing 1, and then create place. Let's go into the website now. Develop. Okay, now let's go test it out. The reason why I'm testing it out in the website instead of the studio is you don't get the chat bar in studio. Even if you use test server, it doesn't work like that. So I'm going to say a word like, hey YouTube, and there it is in our chat GUI. Now let's type some more words in. Let's say, come on, let's script. And like I said, the stuff auto updates. The first message became message 2, and in turn, when I say something else again, message 2 will become message 3. So we're going to say message 3 will become message 2. Message 3, please become message 2. And it does. So we'll exit this, and we'll get back to our tutorial. Before I leave, I would also want to answer some questions, like some common questions about scripting in general with this platform that many people have misconceptions on. So the first question is, do you need tools to detect a key press? The answer is no. You definitely do not. Key presses do not have anything to do with tools. As a matter of fact, tools are just meant so that bricks can be attached to your player, and hopper bins are meant are like tools, except they're meant to hold scripts and make it so that you don't have to hold any bricks, and also allow some native tools like build, delete, or drag. Clone, delete, or drag. So instead, I'm going to show you how to detect key presses without a tool, because like I said, you do not need a tool for that. First, let me delete all these scripts in the top HUD up here. And let's insert a local script into starter pack and starter GUI. Either one matters. You keep in mind that local scripts only run in starter GUI and starter pack. Just keep that in mind. So what we want to do is we want the computer to know that we have a player so that we know where to get data from. So we're going to say player equals game.players.local player. Local player would be basically your player, your native player to your client. It will know exactly who you're talking about, which is the person playing, and the reason is the local script only gets user data and not necessarily server data. It can get server data, but it gets user data first. So when we say game.players.local player, it knows we're talking about you personally. So now we're going to say what the mouse is. We want the computer to know what the mouse is because the keyboard is really a member of the mouse in this game engine. And that's how it's interpreted with Roblox Lua. So we're going to say mouse equals player get mouse, and then we're going to give it an event. We want to give it a listener to know if we're pressing something down. So we're going to say mouse.keyDown connect function key. And then what this would do is it would make sure the computer knows. It would make sure our program can pick up on when something in the keyboard is pressed using key down, as in when the press is only down. It will connect with the value string, and not the value string, the value key, which is a string, and we could know what the key is by saying if key equals something like W, then print key, which what that would do is if the key was W, it would print key, so it would just print W. You got to remember that keys are only string values when they're connected by key down or key up or whatever. Um, it's also good to know that you don't need to use key lower, which is a string function. You don't need to do that at all. The keys are already lowered inside the string, so you don't need that. That's a huge misconception. Tons of scripts have key lower when they don't need to. So that's basically key down, and mouse.key up is just the release of the key. When you take your finger off the key, that would fire. And that's the whole spiel about keys in key presses. The second question was, how important is our variables in making games? Well, the answer to that question is very important. They are a crucial part of making large-scale games, medium-scale games, and in some cases short-scale games. They reduce scripting time. They make it so you don't have to write out very long pieces of tedious code, or just tedious code in general. So I'm going to show you an example of why it's so good. Let's go back in our script, and I will give you an example. So let's say we have a GUI. We're just going to say GUI equals GUI, just because, for the sake of saying there's a GUI. And let's say this GUI had 8 buttons, and each of these 8 buttons needs to do something when we press it. Instead of going into each button and typing a script for each individual button, if they all do the same functionality, then we would want to instead make it so that we can write one piece of code that applies for every button. And that's the beauty of tables. We can make it so that we can do that. Not specifically by tables, but we're going to use a table for this example. So we're going to use something called for do. There are different kinds of for do's, but they're all loops. And with this loop, what it will do is it will go through a table, and for each element in a table, it will do something with that element. So we're going to say for I index, which is the index of the table, and variable, which is a variable, obviously, in pairs, GUI, get children. We are assuming that the buttons of the GUI are directly parented underneath GUI. Do. So we just create our loop, and now we want to know what to do with that loop. First, I want to explain what the index and the variable is. The index is basically the position of the variable in this table. Because get children, what it does is it goes into a game object like starter pack or starter GUI, and it gets everything that's parented underneath it, all the objects, and inserts it into a table. Get children, just returns a table. And variable would be those actual objects. So for every object in the table, do something. It's very straightforward. I find that if you reduce the complexity of it just by explaining it like this, it's very straightforward to even a beginner. This is something everyone should know that programs on this engine, and I will show you why. Variable would be the button at the time, so we're going to do something like variable dot button. I'm sorry, not button. Mouse button 1 down connect function print hello. Basically what this is saying is for everything in the table, as in for every object that gets pressed with the button, we want to print hello. And this just saves us from going into every script and saying script.parent mouse button 1 down connect function print hello. We could just say it once in this one script. It's much more efficient. The last question I had for you guys had for me actually, was what is the client-server barrier? The client-server barrier is basically this idea that the server is a different computer from your own, and therefore it does not know everything that your computer knows as far as data goes. Your client sends information to the server, and likewise the server sends information to the client, but the server cannot get all of the information from the client. So the client, like I said, is your personal computer, and the server is another computer that's somewhere in a remote location from your own. I would presume that the Roblox servers would be held at the HQ, but who knows? It doesn't matter. The servers would send information to you like where the position of everything is, and let's say in a local script you were to change the position of a brick, it would send that information to the server, and the server would send that to all the rest of the clients that are on the game. So the problem with that is we can't always get the server to know what the mouse is. We can't get them to know if you're pressing a key, because it's a part of the mouse. The mouse is native to your client, and your client cannot send that information to the server. There's no way to tell the server that you have an object value called mouse. It could be called mouse, but it's not your actual mouse. You just can't do it. And that's the client-server barrier. You can't always do stuff with the server that you can with the client, and likewise can't always do stuff with the client that you can with the server. An example of that is there is a new function that's coming out. I forgot what the name was, that makes it so that you cannot change anything that's already been created in the game with a local script, because the local script is the client and regular scripts are used for the server. So it would make it so that you can't modify data from the client that has to do with the server, and that's the client-server barrier. It's just two different computers that interact differently, but still send information back and forth. And that's all we have today. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial video. I hope it wasn't too long. I just wanted to answer some questions at the end, some common misconceptions, and really inform you guys on what those things were and what you really need to think about. This has been RBXDev how-to video with chat GUIs. I am DevDerp. I am signing off now. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys liked, and remember, we have a Twitch channel called twitch.tv/RBXDevcast, where you can view us do gameplay, interviews, and other fun stuff. I hope to see you guys there, and I will be chatting there regularly. You guys can ask me questions about scripts. You can PM me on the website, because my username is DevDerp. You can PM me questions about the chat GUI, what those last questions at the end of the video were, and any kind of question, actually. I really hope to talk to you guys later. I hope you liked this video, and I hope to see you on the Twitch. Thank you for watching. This has been RBXDev how-to video, and I am signing off. Goodbye.